Hey everyone, what's up? It's Sunday the 3rd of September and we have a special Big Fat Q&A. This is something that we do every week for people who are on the Big Fat Challenge or who are in the Big Fat Tribe. For anyone who doesn't know, Big Fat Tribe is a membership group. We meet several times a week on Zoom for mutual support, sharing ideas and stuff like that. So
Stephen will jump on as a panelist. He's saying, he said, "I'm here, but I guess you can't hear me."
Yeah.
To jump on as a panelist.
Yeah, you need to be a panelist. So I've sent you an invitation. Okay, so here's how it works, guys. We've got 3 questions that have been submitted during the week. We do these every Sunday, and so we'll always go through.
Hey, Stephen.
First. Hi, Sarah. No, Sarah, you are a participant, not a panelist. If you need to be a panelist, then I can always promote you to be a panelist. If you've got a question or something to discuss or answers and whatever, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go through. Hey, Neethi. We're going to go through the questions we've got now. If anyone else has got any questions, please use the Q&A button in Zoom, not the chat. Okay, so if you want to chat, put it in the chat. If you okay, you don't need to be a story. Okay, so anyway, you'll pick it up. It's not difficult.
Let us know though if you got something to say, Sarah, and then jump on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can jump on and jump off again.
Or anybody, Neethi, whoever wants to pop up. Sue, whatever. Cool. What we got then?
So question number 1, this is from Anne, who I believe is on the call and is only around for half an hour. So put her question first. My husband, Myron, is very tired and has no energy and feels weak. Is this normal? We've been on the carnivore diet for 2 months now. We eat fatty beef, salmon, sausage, bacon, egg yolks, a little coconut cream. Myron has been trying to add more fat. His blood sugar is still high, 150 today without eating. He's 76 years young, 6 feet tall, has lost 12 pounds, so he's now 172 pounds. So that's kind of normal, isn't it? Weight. We've been eating 2 meals a day for the last week. He's still taking several meds the doctor prescribed. One is flaxseed oil for pain and blood pressure. He still has pain in his hips from arthritis. So yeah, a few things there, but the main issue is no energy, feeling weak after 2 months. And then we might talk about the arthritis and hips and flaxseed.
Yeah, just nipping in quickly, I'll let the other 2 boys have a go at this, I think, because there'll be a lot of technical stuff I'm sure that they know. But from my own experience, Neethi said in the chat here, the coconut cream will cause unexpected thyroid issues and other problems. Plant fats, in my experience, create a lot of issues. For me too, I think coconut cream is very inflammatory. I think flaxseed oil probably a bit less, but still unnecessary. And if you're taking in fats, really keep it to animal fats. Honestly, I think they're not ideal. Any inflammation in the body will cause obviously hip pain, but it will cause fatigue as well. At times of high inflammation, and I've experienced a CRP of 192, and believe me, you have no energy whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. Okay, Anne says it's black seed oil. Yeah, I just don't think that stuff's necessary. It's what you cut out more than what you add in. And I would say that, take all the plant stuff out. And, Neethi spotted something there that if something attacks the thyroid, then that could also cause some problems, definitely some fatigue. But, guys, have you spotted anything else there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh, go for it.
Right. Well, one of the things there was the 150 blood glucose, okay, which for other people in other measures, by the way, it's about 8.5. And over 125 is allegedly diabetic, by the way. So if glucose gives you lots of energy, that's one of the things to prove that that's not really the case, because according to your readings, you have more than enough glucose, but you're low energy. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not a sort of no sort of thing. It's just to say, when people say you need lots of glucose for energy, very often the people that report being fatigued and tired will also report high levels of glucose like that. So disproportionate levels, I should say, actually, because, you know, from about 70 to about 125, that's pretty much okay. But after that, if it's at the end of the day, that's pretty high. It's also showing you that your liver is churning out lots of glucose. All right. So the other point there is that if you have got lots of glucose and you're churning out and you're tired, it's not getting into the cell. So dialing back to what Phil just said, you know, about inflammation, the inflammation is going to stop that cell receiving anything. You could actually try to fight it a little bit with a bit of activity. Now, and I'm not talking going out and doing HIIT training. I'm talking about just walking. If you're stuck in a chair, you just move your arms, try and get out of the chair and back. And what will happen is the glucose receptors in your cell will translocate and they go to the membrane. And you might actually find that just doing some activity, and I know it sounds really strange, will actually make you feel more energized. That's because the gates are starting to open to put the glucose not in the blood, but into the cell. So you could look at a sort of mechanical way of dealing with this. And it is counterintuitive. Well, it actually isn't, but it's counterintuitive if you've been following mainstream media and advice for months and years on end. You would think that doesn't sound right. It sounds, if I'm tired, really, I should sit in a chair. But if you just take that as a thought experiment, if you continue to sit in a chair, do you think you're going to be more energized or less energized? So it is a little bit of a tipping point where you've got to just think a little bit about that differently. Also, when you go to Carnivore, it's very much a new thing for your body. More protein. Protein takes 25% more energy to digest than carbohydrates, for instance. So 5 times the amount of effort, basically, to absorb protein compared to carbs. So that's going to make you tired. And ancestrally, actually, feeling sleepy after a meal, for instance, is pretty normal. I mean, animals will do that. Humans will do that in tribes. It's just that it's not the norm, you know, the accepted way that somebody in good old Blighty lives their life. You know, you have a meal and you have a stiff upper lip and you go on until about 10 o'clock at night and you mustn't fall asleep. But actually, you are fighting absolutely everything. So, yeah, I know Jonathan's probably chomping at the bit as well, and I'm sorry if I'm giving you a very long answer, but I think it was partly to do with adaptation to carnivore, partly, you know, it could be that you're eating at the wrong time. It could be you're eating a bit too much, maybe. But I do think a little bit of activity is going to start looking at your blood glucose, start bringing that down. And I know that sounds really strange. When you first do the activity, you might see a little bump up if you've got a continual glucose monitor, because your body will then be thinking, wow, this person's now active, so we're going to need a little bit more from the liver. But actually, the long-term physiological effect, a training response, you're training your body, it will actually bring out the translocation of the GLUT4 transporters, and basically you will see your blood glucose go down, I think.
Jonathan, you got anything?
Oh yeah. I think Stephen brought up some really good points. Yeah, so some light activity would be useful. I'd be, before like really prescribing something or advising something, be looking at the macronutrient intake. So the ratio of protein to fat, how much of each. If he's eating very lean, people don't realize how much fat you actually have to eat if you're trying to get healthy. That could be why he's not feeling great. Other people, they dilute their blood too much with too much water. So they end up not actually absorbing many vitamins because they're pissing out all the time. I'd add more salt to your diet. If you have a craving for salt, that might be it. Some people don't add enough salt to their food. You might also be under eating. That could be why. But I think the key thing is that it's going to take a bit of time. If your blood glucose is somewhere around 150 in the US metrics, you're going to be honestly looking at a bit of time before you get that down. And it might just take a bit of just dietary intervention, a bit of tweaking, increase the fat a little bit, reduce the protein maybe. It also could be like deuterium depletion. So you might, I don't know, might benefit from some kind of like fasting of some kind. So that might deplete some deuterium from your body as well. It's one of those cases where you won't know until you try it. But that also may have contraindications for your medication, which will, in of itself, usually in a lot of cases, these things raise blood glucose because they disrupt the gut microbiome. So your body's response to food isn't quite the same. But the best things you could do right now probably are just make sure your diet is, balanced for sensible amount of protein, sensible amount of fat. Get out in the sunlight, do some earthing, some grounding. See if you can reduce your medication if that's possible and your GP allows you. Get rid of any seed oils of all kinds. And outside of that, probably some light activity. So get into the morning, go for a walk, 10-minute walk, 10-minute walk again at lunch, 10-minute walk again at as the sun goes down. That's probably your best bet for now, outside of really digging deep. So I'll just be using the stuff on the outside which we know works, then digging deeper and refining from there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's all great, and I find Stephen's idea of a bit of activity is brilliant. Sometimes if you feel really sluggish in the morning, just get on a rebounder for a bit, and it wakes you up completely. Go for a walk, get on a rebounder, something like that. Do some what do you call them outside? Star jumps and good mornings, and what is it called? Surya Namaskara and things like that. Sun salutes, whatever. Get a bit of activity in, some grounding. Nethi has said here, if activity isn't desired, light hygiene will help fix it with simple act of going outside at sunrise to thank the universe for the new day. And this one simple action can change a lot of things. 2 weeks isn't nearly enough time to remediate with lifetime poisoning yourself. I think this gentleman's been on it a couple of months, but still it's early days, particularly if you're having seed oils, particularly if you're having coconut cream, and particularly if you're on medication. So these throw spanners in the works that cover up, what would otherwise be helping. Jonathan brought up fasting for deuterium depletion. So dry fasting, no food, no water is very, very powerful. A couple of days of that is great. And we do not die after 3 days without water. You're barely even thirsty by then, I tell you, as long as you don't sweat too much. And so the light hygiene as well, getting rid of artificial light at night so that there's more healing at night. The sleep is better. Get some red bulbs in, some candles, switch the screens off, get them on red, get iris on the computer, that kind of thing. And actually, I think cold thermogenesis might be a bit of fun too. That really wakes you up and gives you energy. And it's no more than maybe turning the shower on for a couple of minutes too cold and just turning round and round until the shock's gone. And the energy there, through the, is it the vagus nerve and all sorts? It does all kinds of things through there and the hypothalamus. And
or if that's too much, even just a face plunge in a basin of water.
Face plunge too, to work up to it. But all of these things, and they're all just kind of ancestral disconnects. What you take away is more important than what you add. So get rid of the seed oils and also one more thing, pork. It can make you sluggish. Some people react to it. The pigs haven't eaten what they're supposed to eat. The fat can have high linoleic acid, deuterium. It can also do something to do with thickening the blood up as well, apparently, pork. Quite soon after you eat it. So if you're having pork and you're feeling particularly tired after a meal, it could be the pork if you don't feel so tired after beef and lamb. I think that anybody with any problems, and I wish I'd done it 13 years ago, is go to fatty beef and lamb, nothing else for 30 days, and then start introducing things one at a time. 90 days if you're very sick. It's the only way you're going to know what you're reacting to. But without knowing the meds, that's a wild card. So there we go. That's all I got on that one.
Interesting comment from Aja as well. Wow, another lie I've always heard is it's the food we eat that makes us feel tired after a meal, and also it's bad to take a nap after a meal. I've been taking naps sometimes after eating. I lay back, it's still sitting up, and I feel it's good. Well, look at what other carnivores do. Carnivores are not known for being extremely active. Herbivores have to keep them just slowly moving around all day. If you're a gorilla, then you're pulling things up, you're putting them in your mouth, you're chewing all day long. Cows, likewise, rabbits, likewise, always hopping around, always eating. the carnivore lifestyle is very different. We have periods of explosive activity when we hunt, and then we eat literally as much as we can in one sitting. So our body then stores energy in the fat cells to keep us going for the next however many days it's going to be until we get another hunt, and we have a lie down and a sleep. You know, just look at the lion. It's always lying down, isn't it? They're not constantly going from. They're not hustling, lions. You know. So, and the other thing is that digestion is very hard work, right? So that's another good reason not to, to cut down the number of times you eat per day, and your digestive system will send out a request for blood. So that's why sometimes your muscles can feel achy, like smokers can feel like they really need a cigarette after a meal and stuff like that, because more blood is being redirected to your digestive system. So absolutely never. And like my grandfather, I once said to him, because he was a very wise man, he was a lifelong Quaker and a lovely guy. And I said to him, because he didn't have that long left. So I said to him, look, if you could give me one piece of advice for life, what would it be? And he thought for a minute and he leaned forward and said, you can sleep whenever you like. And I thought, is that it? But
that's weird. I completely got morphic resonance off that. I was just about to tell that story.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, and don't eat too late at night either.
Yeah.
If you're healing something up, don't eat too late at night. Leave night for healing, not digesting.
I was just saying, why dry fasting? I feel I couldn't do that. I'd need liquids. You'd be amazed.
Yeah, I find it easier. I find dry fasting easier. They say that dry fasting is equivalent, 1 day of dry fasting equivalent to 3 days of water fasting for a lot of the benefits. There's some amazing benefits to, what the Russians have done with their research. It's Filanov, isn't it? And one other one I can't remember. But they both, I think, independently came up with the 11-day thing. So 11 days dry fast. And apparently you have something called an acidotic crisis on the 8th and the 10th day or something like that blows up any disease, they reckon. But there have been some phenomenal reversals of cancer with 11-day dry fasts. Seems to be a bit of a magical number. It's a serious undertaking going that far, but I know people have done that and longer. The longest I've done, I think, is about 4 days, I think, for a specific issue, and it worked beautifully. But I think it's not totally necessary. If you're very strict, these things will heal up in time. But if you want a bit of a kick and you don't have time to do a sort of 30 days and 30 nights water fast, you can do it in 10 days on dry fasting. But even a night, a day and a night. Because I hear these people saying fasting and they go, oh, I fasted for 24 hours. And I go, that's not a fast. That's in between meals. I don't see that as a fast. I always think a fast starts at one night, 1 day, and 1 night, whether it's a water fast or whatever. But having done huge water fasts in the past, when I was trying to, get rid of the damage from plant-based eating that I kept forcing into myself, I think a serious fast is starts at a night and a day and a night, perhaps even 3 days. Yes. Anyway, where are we?
Well, I think I might have messed up with your Q&A thing, because I asked a question back from Sarah Sparkles, who put, in your opinion, do you think 36-hour fasts once a week is harmful for 40 plus females? I'm losing weight painfully slowly and looking into every possible angle to get things moving downwards. And I asked a subsidiary question, what is your longest fast you've already tried, and how is your thyroid health? But it's come up as me having answered it, but I haven't really. I've just asked for a bit more information, because diving into a 36-hour fast, I wouldn't recommend anyone doing that. I think you've got to actually get into fasting, transition in. But if you're an experienced faster and you've done a 36-hour fast before, and the clock ticks over and you suddenly become 40 plus, I can't see any damage really that's going to be caused from that, unless you're trying to heal something like your thyroid, where you may be needing nutrients, to actually produce and make your thyroid and your thyroid hormone. So I don't know if you want to dial back on that. And I'm sorry, guys, I didn't realise that would happen.
No, it's perfect. Carry on, please.
That's cool. It's interesting. I asked Sophia Clements from Paleomedicina on my podcast. I think it was on my podcast that she was on. But I asked her about fasting, and she said she never recommends it, and it's awful. And she sees blood work that's terrible with people who are fasting. And yet again, I always think, well, you know, we have fasted in the past, and a lot of people have great benefits from it. So is the blood work she's seeing what the body actually does in fasting that she's not used to seeing when they're on a carnivore diet? But you make a great point, Stephen, that in a lot of cases, you know, the body needs the nutrients to heal. It's not all about killing inflammation and healing the gut. You have to balance all of these things up. And I would say anybody, you know, I said about cold thermogenesis, if you have an underactive thyroid, it's fine. If you've got an overactive thyroid, don't do it. If you've got Graves' disease, do not do cold thermogenesis. It's very dodgy.
And I'll follow up from that. Kathy's asked in the Q&A, should you be fat adapted before you fast? And how do you know if you are fat adapted?
Well, I mean, that's if you're looking at phlebotomy, you can get a clue. Not many talk about this, VLDL. So if your VLDL is low, very low density lipoprotein, that tends to indicate that you're fat adapted. But that, you know, that information doesn't seem to be out there very quickly, or amongst sort of everybody. What happens, because it's one of the first, well, you know, one of the first lipoproteins that leaves the liver. So the cells are getting first dibs from that energy supply. So if it's low, what that indicates is that the cells are sucking up all those triglycerides and everything in it. So that tends to show that you're fat adapted. And another way, I'm just going to give you some empirical data, you know, so the VLDL readings, that's pretty good. You can also obviously look at something like a ketone, glucose ketone monitor, see if you're fat adapted, look at your levels of ketones. But I'm very much into being intuitive. And I think once you are fat adapted, and this is such a rubbish answer, you sort of know. Because
that is the technical term, isn't it?
Yeah, but you do. I mean, it's just your body composition is much easier to manage. Your energy levels are easier to manage. You sleep better. And I think that's a pretty good sign. Personally, that's what I would say.
Yeah. And Sarah, are you having any dairy, any butter or anything? Some people can take it, but some people find that when they cut it out, then the weight loss, the fat loss, let's say, it's more accurate, speeds up quite a lot. We've seen that quite a bit in women. Nethi says commodity chicken and pork in markets globally have been injected with mRNA for 12 plus years. Yeah. Disgraceful, isn't it? Absolutely disgraceful.
Sarah's added, I had blood taken last Tuesday to test my thyroid function and iron levels. Are you saying that if I'm hypothyroid, then not too fast? I am off dairy.
Well, it depends. It depends who you talk to, but Sophia, I do really value what she says, because having been, had some horrific bouts of autoimmunity and known the difference between slight little tweaks, just giving up butter, things like that, is huge. And Sophia reckons that, even a few molecules of dairy will keep autoimmune conditions going, and things like leukemia, things like that, cancer, it just a few molecules. And so people get really cross about that, and they go, oh, raw dairy is fantastic and it heals. But I mean, in comparison to what? So I'd say risk it, because she says that raw dairy is worse than pasteurized dairy, because people react immediately to pasteurized dairy because the lactase is destroyed in the pasteurization process, and so people get lactose intolerant. But then down the line, if you leave all the growth factors intact, then that can be more of a problem with the mitochondria and unusual cell replication and whatever, because it creates growth. It's for a small animal to get to a big animal, as Ben said when we were chatting to Sophia, and that enrages people. And I don't know for sure. Who knows for sure? I've just put that out there, that we don't need dairy. We definitely don't need it. No adult animal needs it. So if you're having difficulty with anything and you've still got dairy in the diet, and that's your only thing you've got apart from meat, cut it out. First 4 years of carnivore for me, I had meat and butter. And then when the missus got diagnosed with Graves' disease in 2019, and Zofia said that about the dairy, and she said, oh, I can give up all the plants, but the dairy is going to be difficult. Well, I said, I'll do it with you. And I dropped a load of fat, abs popped out, and my sinus issues cleared up. Now, I didn't have any joint issues at the time, but it definitely improved everything. And there was something going on with the dairy, and that was just butter. You know, so now I've really completely knocked it on the head now. Don't do it at all. Had enough after that scare last year. And I think that might have been to do with dairy, because I was having a bunch of cheese through the summer, pork, eggs, chicken, brandy. Yeah. Too much brandy, spliffs, everything. Rock and roll it was, traveling around. But, you know, I don't know exactly what it was. I mean, who knows what it was? It was the autumn equinox, could have been shedding, could have been. But anyway, I won't go into that. There's an episode coming out with Anthony Chafee soon where I go into it for a whole hour, exactly what happened. And we had some laughs, actually. I hope he brings it out soon. But yeah, I would really experiment. If the weight loss is slow, get rid of the dairy. Sue, who's on the call here, she found that early on in the challenge. You know, her fat loss slowed down, and then she took the dairy out, and it just kicked off again. It was fine. But yeah,
I've done a lot of experiments about like having dairy in and out with like myself and other people, just hearing what people do. And I've come to the conclusion, based just on my experience, that just like losing fat, I think most of it is how much food you take in. So like the protein, the fat. If you eat too much, you'll get fat. You eat too little, you get skinny, sort of thing. I think 20% of that weight, like total weight that you can gain or lose, is also hormonal, at least for the average person. So for me, if I want to gain weight, I will have dairy because it's got some carbs in, you know, some lactose, things like that. And that seems to increase the insulin, which means that my body's storing more. So if you looked at like the calories, for example, it'd say a lower amount of calories than say my diet with a lower amount of like dairy in it. But actually gain fat, I'd begin to gain fat slightly as if I wasn't training hard enough. So I think there really is something to that dairy when it comes to fat loss. And it's a lever you can pull if you need to pull it and you're pretty stuck.
Yeah, no, another really simple thing is that, of course, dairy is hyperpalatable. And the reason for that fundamentally is because it contains carbohydrates and fats in one package. And there's very few food sources in nature that do that. Nuts do it, some seeds, dairy, well, all milk products and things like avocados, right? And that's why, because nuts want to be eaten, right? So do, I guess, avocados. But the point of making dairy hyperpalatable is because the mother mammal wants her infant offspring to get as much energy, nutrients from the fats, everything in as quickly as possible. They don't want the having the lactose in there. It's not quite. There's different sugar profiles in human milk to cow's milk and whatever. But we have, is it galactase we have as well in there? But that bypasses the normal satiation, which is why every kind of junk food out there has a combination of fats and carbs. So everything from donuts to chocolate to pizza. I mean, I could eat a pizza that big. I really could. You know, seafood for me with anchovies on, numb. You know, and still go back for more. It's really incredible stuff.
I have done many times. Those eat all you can buffets at Pizza Hut. It's just incredible the amount you can eat and how awful you feel afterwards.
Phil, I ate a 3.5 kilo pizza in an hour. And I halved the previous record time, which was held for like years.
Can I
I'm
just
not
add
doing that again?
I just add a little bit on the milk thing. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's not really, again, not talked about much, but when you're a baby, right, you're only supposed to have breast milk. So that's, in humans, that's, I think, something like 4.5% fat. And it's 1.1% protein. So if you're having milk and other proteins, you've immediately knocked out that ratio. So you're giving your body a real hard time. because that's what the human wants when it's growing as a baby. I know we're adults and stuff like that, and obviously all the other things, like if it's pasteurized, you've got rid of the enzyme that deals with the lactose. But I think that's the thing. Milk is very species specific. You know, if you was to have whale milk, you know, or even seals, you know, that it's like 50% fat, because they've got to have a big layer of fat. So I think that's the thing. If we talk about dairy as in, you know, human ratios, there's nothing out there that's the same. So we're already ingesting stuff. I'm not saying it's bad or good, or, you know, you should avoid it. I'm just saying that there's the facts. If you are having problems with dairy and you take dairy out and you stop having problems, that's the best proof, to be honest, isn't it? I mean, that works for me. I always come back to what works intuitively. But if you want to know sort of why that is, it's because we tend to be having milk from another species. So milk is species appropriate. So we're always going on about the species appropriate diet. Well, why aren't we talking about the species appropriate liquid? You know, so that would be a different way to look at it for some people. And of course, some people say, well, I'm fine with cheese, but then that's processed, you know, and you're taking out lots of the water, and you're taking out, you know, lots of the proteins, and, you know, you're adding microbes. So you're completely changing that from milk to a different product completely. And you might cope with cheese better, but I find with the people I coach that if you add cheese and you're having a problem with your weight, you take cheese out, your weight or body composition management improves. And then if you take out liquid dairy, then it improves even more. So I think it is just a case of, you know, trying to understand what we're doing here, which is try to be as species appropriate as possible. But in saying that, you know, tribes, they do well with milk, but they mix it with blood normally, don't they? So they're changing it in a drastic way.
Yeah.
Sarah in the chat says, I've been off dairy for 50 days, and apart from losing half a stone of bloating and psoriasis, I am not losing fat.
Well, you know, I think the body sometimes has different priorities.
Yeah.
And you find that, so it's doing something else, and then the weight comes down. Your weight will normalize on a good carnivore diet eventually, but it's doing other things. There's even emotional aspects to holding on to fat, sort of protecting yourself, that kind of thing. But Sue says here, I ditched dairy and now use only tallow. Loss is very slow and not linear, but it's ticking down again for sure. This is typical. You know, I mean, I had a lady, what's her name? Can't remember. Anyway, she was wonderful. She was on the Carnivore group for quite some time. And she lost, I think, on average, about £1 pound a week, you know, over a couple of years, and lost 100 pounds. But it was, sometimes it would go up, sometimes it would go down, but it kind of averaged out about £1 pound a week. And most people go, oh, that's nothing. But not only is it slow and healthy, if you lose fat too fast, you can really shift a load of toxins, and they can be very uncomfortable on the way out. Also, you get more loose skin. The slower that you lose fat, the more the skin tends to keep up with it. Yeah, I think that's the thing. One thing on the pork here. Nethi has said, Zofia mostly eats fatty pork. She and I have discussed this at length as well, and she says she doesn't recommend it to anyone because the sourcing of clean pork is difficult to find, and she knows most people cannot put their hands on it. I'm stating this generally for the overall conversation. I found our pork to help me tremendously and help most of the families that I'm feeding in the food church. I'd say it's as helpful as beef, goat, and lamb amongst the folks we are nourishing. Well, definitely, you know, if people aren't nourished properly, pork is still infinitely superior. But, you know, the first time I chatted to Zofia about pork, I think it was back in 2019, and she was saying, yeah, pork's got a tremendous fatty acid profile, get it in, eat loads of pork. And I said, yeah, but you've got you've got the Mangalitsa pigs in Hungary. They're eating a great diet. It's fantastic meat. Is it really the same for our farmed pork in England? And she went, no, it isn't. Probably best avoid it. Now, also, it's interesting, actually, because when we were at the Sheffield conference recently, Zofia had some bison sausage or buffalo sausage or something from Eskimo Kitchen, and Ben and I had some. It was really nice. And so I ordered a load. We've got a load of these pork products now from Eskimo Kitchen in Hungary. And they're getting waded through in the fridge. And I have to say that even that, which is absolutely PKD compliant, I don't get on with as well as beef. I can honestly say that now. And I wanted to order that stuff. It's not as bad as the English stuff for me, but it wasn't good. It wasn't like joints or anything, but it was just digestion, feeling a bit sluggish. I really did pig out on it the first day because those sausages dipped into the pork crackling pate, and it's so good. I ate way too much. And I got the runs that night, during the night, not massively, like a couple of times. I thought I better get up, if I want a clean bed in the morning, And it was surprising, but I don't do well with it. Deta's fine with it, with this pork, my missus, and so I've left the rest to her, and she's taken sausages to work, for her lunch, but no good for me. It depends, but that is definitely better. That Hungarian mangalitsa. This is the first time I've actually tried it, and absolutely delicious. The different things that they make in the Eskimo Kitchen, but I still think beef and lamb is the king.
Yeah, I'm generally all right with a bit of pork. Yeah, if you can source good outdoor reared pork that's from pigs that have eaten what they're supposed to eat, which is a huge variety of stuff, then great. Or even hunted wild boar if you can get that. If you're in like Germany, Poland, wherever. Stephen, I know you've got to drop off, mate.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks so much for dropping in.
Thank you.
That's
That
all
was
right.
brilliant. Thanks, Stephen.
See you later.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.
Okay, next question from Kathy. What about MCT oil in order to get the fat in? I'm having a hard time getting enough fat. MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides. So basically medium chain fats like coconut oil, I guess.
It usually is sort of refined coconut oil, isn't it? Or something, MCT oil, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Jonathan? I don't like it. I don't think it's part of an animal, so I don't like it much.
I don't know. I think I know some people that don't deal well with animal fat at all. So that's dairy, tallow, beef fat, cut from the animal. They just don't deal with it. So they do, I think it's like cacao butter or something. I think that might even actually be better than MCT oil. I think from what I've heard, about half people have issues with MCT oil. At least it will go through them, if that makes sense. I'll be quite careful on that one. I'm one of those people. My brother is as well. So for me, I couldn't touch it. Even a teaspoon would go through me. So I don't deal with it well. So yeah, there's better alternatives, I think. I'd probably look at the cacao butter if someone can't tolerate beef fat or whatever for any reason.
Yeah, it's what fats who asked the question? Was it Ben?
That was Kathy.
Kathy, what sort of fats are you taking in at the moment? I think a lot of people have difficulty when they think it's just the meat that they have to get the fat on. Whereas, if you get the tallow and have a load of tallow standing by, I'm totally satisfied with that. There was some mince in the fridge now, for example. That's what I just ate, and it was boring, and it was just sort of, fried up and then left in the fridge. And I heated it up with a big dollop of tallow and a little bit of water, just so it wasn't so dry. And it was absolutely fantastic. As soon as you add the really good grass-fed tallow back into the regular mince or ground beef, as they call it, over the pond. Yeah. And
so I've got beef brisket here.
Yeah,
just get the beef brisket and just cook it in butter or tallow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Kathy says in the chat, crispy beef, and I cook with tallow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't force it, unless you're really going for the PKD ratio of like, a third fat on the plate to 2/3 lean meat by sight. There's no need to really, really push the fat. Just eat what your body is demanding. Some days I don't really want that much fat, and some days I want a ton of fat. Your body will tell you, really. Nethi says here, plant fats, especially MCT, made me gain back fat and upper arm fat. It was terrible. I don't recommend. Same again as it attacks thyroids. Yeah, well, yeah, it's derived from the coconut as well.
And remember, there's no fats from the animal kingdom that can store the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K.
Yeah, so plant fats seem like a bit of a waste of space to me, a bit of a waste of stomach space, because they don't have those nutrients, even if they're not triggering any issues.
Yeah, there's no stearic acid either, and that's part of the reason why there's a book out called like the French Paradox or something about the diet and how they cooked with lard and stuff. And they theorized basically it's a stearic acid that was allowing people to like get in better shape, and something like coconut oil is going to have like caprylic acid, but not specific fatty acids. So different fatty acids have different effects on your body, which is bizarre because you just thought a fat was a fat, but it's not quite true when we look at the body, obviously, from different biochemistry kind of standpoints.
Just before I went carnivore, and must have been about like 2013, 2014, we were eating a load of coconut oil, cooking in it and sort of mixing that with butter and doing roast veg in it and stuff. And as soon as I got rid of the coconut oil, one day the body said just I'd had enough. I mean, we were getting loads, like 25-kilo tubs of it and using it for everything. And as soon as I swapped to the animal fats, there was a huge difference, even before I got rid of the last of the plants. It doesn't sit well with me, really. Neethi says, to Phil's point about weight, also losing weight isn't the sign of healing as much as weight distribution, inches, not pounds. That's a really good point. A lot of women think that they're not doing very well because they're increasing muscle mass and bone density. And so if they stick to the tape measure rather than the scales, they find that they're actually doing a lot better than they thought. And Neethi, back to the pork, I'm sure a lot of things are a factor, including breed geography and level of fat adaptation. Its fat is different. We have Magalitzes and other heritage breeds here, including the grassed hogs, coons, is that what they're called? That are better received by a lot of folks. Yeah, definitely. If you can get on with pork, absolutely go for it. I just, a lot of people, particularly people who have autoimmunity, have a problem with it, even the good pork. So something about it is if you have a look at an article on zero carb Zen, if you just Google zero carb Zen and pork, and you'll find an interesting article about other things it does, not to do with the stuff that we've mentioned here, but I did briefly about the thickening of the blood, apparently. Cool. Sarah says MCT upset my digestion. Terrible brown rain. Oh dear. Okay, Jonathan's heading off for bedtime and his snack.
Yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. Good luck with the rest of the Q&A, and I'll hopefully see you next week or whenever it is,
Thank you so much, mate. Thanks a lot.
No, appreciate
it. Yeah, see you both. Bye.
See you later.
All right. Next question from Emily. Question about gut microbiome. If I'm hardly eating any dairy, just butter really, is there any advantage of making a little raw cream kefir? Is the purpose of kefir to introduce the gut bacteria, or to introduce to the gut bacteria that are good at breaking down lactose, casein, and whey?
I don't know. Some people absolutely swear by fermented dairy and they get benefits from it. But then again, I would say in relation to what? What diet have they come from? I used to use sauerkraut and kefir and stuff like that back in the sort of keto days before I went carnivore, but I just don't think about it now at all. So I think the thing is, there was a bit of a problem when somebody went off and excuse me, when they went off and did some sort of study of the Hadza in Tanzania, and they said, right, they have a really diverse microbiome, and this is why they're so healthy, because they eat loads of plants. And it was really weird because they don't eat loads of plants. In fact, when they chew up the tubers that they do eat, they tend to chew them up and then spit out the fiber. The Maasai down the road who don't eat any plants, they look a lot healthier to me, although the Hadza are a lot healthier than your average Westerner if they're on their traditional diet. But people got obsessed with this, increased diversity of the microbiome. Nobody understands the microbiome. And a lot of it, when they test it and they do stool tests, a lot of it's like, we don't even know what that is. Nobody, 40% of what they check apparently You know, there's trillions of bacteria in the gut. Nobody knows exactly why they change, why they proliferate, why certain species come up, why they come down. It's a new science and nobody really understands. When people go carnivore, fully carnivore, some people increase the diversity of the microbiome and some people don't, and some it simplifies, but they all feel well. I think Sean Baker nailed it one time when he said, you know, a healthy microbiome is one that a healthy person has. And that varies widely. So I wouldn't really think about it too much. I think the downsides of something like kefir, in my opinion, outweigh the benefits. And I don't think we need it. Again, we don't need dairy of any sort in our diet. Here we go. Niti's, I think I've read the first 2 lines. It looks like something I was just about to talk about, which I'll just see. I think these beneficial bacteria teachings are to help folks digest plants, which we have already established that we simply don't need to eat at all. As an Indian woman trying to reconcile giving up veggies, I can fully attest to the fact that we need not concern ourselves with this. Just eat meat, and if you need to help to adapt, you go back and forth with a fat to protein adjustment more than adding the bacteria. I totally agree. You know, the beneficial bacteria, you know, that they're called, are ones that are protecting you against the plants that you're eating most of the time. And I think when they die off, that's why that's why people get problems when they reintroduce something. Sarah's putting her chicken flock to bed. See you soon, Sarah. Thanks for dropping in. Lovely to see you.
No, I haven't got any chickens anymore. We are bird free now for the first time in 12 years. We may get some more next year, we'll see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, your gut biome should be constantly adjusting itself to the food that you eat.
And the light and the season. And, you know, which sort of detoxes you're experiencing at the time. You know, where I mean by that, what they call colds and flu and things like that. You know, it readjusts all the time, and particularly changing diet. You know, it will be readjusting. That's why, you know, people get the runs quite a lot when they first go carnivore. You know, that old phrase, don't trust a fart on keto. That's particularly in the early stages of it. Yeah. So, yeah, don't worry about it. I think Niti's absolutely right. She says here, keep it simple. As Anthony says, plants are poisoning us. It's true.
Yeah. The other thing is just, I mean, if you think about what our ancestors would have had in the Paleolithic, they'll have eaten all kinds of stuff, but they'll have also had some dirt.
Yes, I forgot to say that about the Hadza. They probably have the microbiome they have. They don't boil their water. You know, the sort of water that would trash a Westerner, and they don't wash their hands. They don't wash their food, and they're getting really good sort of environmental bacteria in all the time. So yeah, this has probably got nothing to do with the occasional yam that they chew up and spit out, which is what they were trying to say. Yeah. It's funny when you look at these studies and they just look at down some one narrow angle of things. And there's so much more in nature that comes into it, so much more that we don't know. But I reckon anybody who says they understand the microbiome is lying. They don't. Nobody does these days. Nobody does.
Soil. Absolutely. Yeah. Just throw in this question from Arja, it's in the chat. What would you say to somebody, me, who feels it's boring or somehow not fun, or maybe removing the art of cooking just to eat meat at every meal? Well, I say, Arja, come round to our meetup. Whenever that is, because I mean, we ate like kings, didn't we, for that weekend? But yeah, absolutely, you're right on one level. I mean, my breakfasts now are quite boring. I have like about 1.5 pounds of minced beef with some bacon chopped up in it and about 1 ounce of lard or tallow, you know, whatever's going off. I just fry it all off in a pan and I eat it with a spoon. It's like a greasy soup, but it keeps me going all day. Even so, meat is the best bit of any meal, or always was. But But yeah,
For me,
over time, I'm just kind of readjusting my view of food, that it's not there just as entertainment. It's primarily medicine. It's keeping me alive. It's keeping me healthy. And then, generally in the evening, we'll have a nice steak, sometimes with a sauce, sometimes with some fried potatoes and tallow. Absolutely fine for us. But yeah, I am kind of, I'm not going out of my way to seek as much pleasure from food all the time. What do you think, Phil? Because you've been at it a lot longer and a lot stricter.
Well, my tastes really changed. The motivation was very strong to get out of real crippling agony. And my taste changed over time. And Niti says here, about being Indian and having all the spices and herbs and extraordinary sort of tastes all over the place. I remember I used to do it. I used to cook Indian food all the time, Indian veggie food. And all the hundreds of spices and this and that and the complicated recipes, marvelous taste, flavors, you do miss that for a while. But then, I don't know, I made a video on my YouTube channel, Is Eating Only Meat Boring? And I just come up with the conclusion that nothing tastes as good as remission feels. And after a while, the tastes do become more subtle. They become more nuanced. Like I know if it's a beef day, if it's a lamb day, if I need some liver, if I need some fish. Definitely, I feel a fish binge coming up, and I haven't thought about them for about 2 months. And sometimes it's actually like sardines, sometimes it's oysters, and then I forget about them for ages. Liver has been quite, come up a lot recently, and I've eaten quite a bit of liver. Now I don't want any. I thought, I better get some more liver, and I thought, no, it's just out of habit. I don't want it. It's something in it, and your body tells you those things. When you get rid of the addiction signals, because everybody wants a load of pizza and chocolate. But then when you get rid of that, listen to the subtler signals underneath. However, I'm going to put something in the chat here that will be a really good idea if somebody wants a little bit of variety. Tristan and Jessica Haggard from Primal Edge Health, they brought out the Carnivore cookbook, and I think it's absolutely genius. There's some amazing stuff in there. There is some dairy, but if you don't have the dairy, you can avoid the dairy parts of the recipes or whatever. But she's been really creative, Jessica, in that. That cookbook I really can highly recommend. I don't even bother. I just look at it because I think it's so creative. I haven't even bothered with it because I'm absolutely fine. I've done it for so long. I'm absolutely fine with steak, mince, lamb burgers. But basically my staple food at the moment is lamb mince squashed into a burger with a bit of salt and white pepper and chucked in an air fryer, and then all the fat poured over it in the end. I could live on that, and short ribs, and I'm done. Fatty short ribs. Those two things, and I'd be absolutely happy. My two favorite meals.
And he's put a good.
It wasn't always that way.
And he said there's a lot of freedom in not turning to food for entertainment and pleasure as well. So it cuts both ways.
Asia, yes, mince meat does mean ground beef. Same thing. Yeah, it's just we English. And he says, now that I'm dairy-free carnivore, I'm definitely not eating for entertainment or even pleasure, but there's a lot of freedom in not turning to food for these purposes. But then again, another thing is that, there's an expression, isn't there, that, hungry means hunt, not eat. So I tend to give it a while. I was kind of hungry about 10 o'clock this morning, and then I just played drums, and I got really focused on it. And I didn't eat till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And by that time I was really hungry, and I ate something that wasn't that great, but it was fine. I thought that's fantastic. It's just filled up, and that's nutrients and whatever. If I'd have eaten it at 10 o'clock, I probably wouldn't have got through it. It wasn't that it was disgusting. It just wasn't one of my favorite meals, but it was, that minced beef with a load of tallow in it. When it's just fried up, ground beef, minced beef, whatever, I'm not a great fan of that. Just sometimes Detta does it for the kids. I don't like it much, but it's absolutely fine when you're really hungry. So the best sauce is hunger. I think the best spice, the best flavoring is hunger. Wait till you're a bit more hungry, and then stuff yourself. But definitely get that book. So if people are watching this and it's not down in the notes or anything, just go to Primal Edge Health, the Carnivore Cookbook. It's wonderful book. Right, whizzing through the chat here.
He says, it's funny, I'm most satisfied with just beef patties with or without bacon bits. I do cook it in bacon grease. We have raw cheese and dairy for the rest of the family who aren't in pain I'm in, yeah. So with autoimmune issues. We have a lot of day trip seafood, which helps with the variety for them. Without the seafood and chicken for our side dishes, my husband may have left me by now.
Yes, it's the same with the kids. I've got no problem with them eating pork and chicken. You know, they eat it. It took a lot. When I think how long it took to break me, 30 years of vegetarian eating in one form or another, and it took that long to break me from sort of 18 to 48. And they're eating a predominantly meat-based diet, and they have the odd bit of chocolate or whatever. I'm not worried. I don't think that's enough to break somebody. It's just not ideal when you've already got sick. So I think 95% of what my son eats is meat, and probably 70% of what my daughter eats is meat, because now she's 15, she gets to go out and get all sorts of crap at her friends' houses, and then comes back rolling around, clutching her stomach. I'm never doing it again. And then, of course, they do. But, it doesn't worry me. I think they're going to be absolutely fine.
The other interesting thing is about the way that my relationship with my food has changed is that I don't really ever catch myself eating unconsciously anymore either. You used to sit there, like go to a movie with a 2-gallon thing of popcorn, and they're designed for that size so that you can sit there like that for 2 hours and just about get to the end of it. That's completely unconscious.
I could never eat that stuff. I'd sit there with a bag of minstrels, like a jumbo bag of minstrels, and do that. And Pringles,
yeah.
Cancer in a can. But, popcorn, you don't do that. You do that. You just keep throwing it around. It's great for plonking off the back of people's heads. No, I don't. Yeah. Don't get on the
and also this, Neathy's put something about snacking. My children don't snack and never have snacked. It's really interesting that society is designed that you're meant to grab food on the go, grab bags and grazing bars and stuff like that. Like Zoe Hockham says, unless you are a cow or you want to be the size of one, stop grazing. We just don't need to do it. And a lot of it's habit breaking as well, isn't it? It's like, wow, it's 11 o'clock. Maybe I should put something in my face. Or maybe you should do something else. There's a question here from DP. I bought 30 kilograms of tallow over a year ago. Haven't used half of it yet. How long should it last? Indefinitely, in my experience so far, particularly if you freeze it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had tallow go off. But yeah, if it's in the freezer, it should be absolutely fine.
Oh God, the freezer. It'll outlast the freezer.
Yeah. Fat is a preservative, says Neathy.
Yeah, it is. Well, they found those old bits of pemmican, haven't they? 50 years old and whatever, and still edible.
Sally had something at work that is basically cured pork fat, and it's an absolute delicacy. I can't remember what the name is, unfortunately, but it made it some of that fat that she had in her charcuterie cupboard. That it was the son of the owner of the estate. It made it to the final banquet of the Great British Menu last year.
Cool.
Right, so we've answered all the questions in there. Nigel's put a question in here. I've tried Carnivore for about a year in 2018, lost weight, felt better, etc., but never cured my psoriasis, which I'm regretfully on immunosuppressants and really want to get off. As is a link between psoriasis and arthritis, I was always interested in Phil's journey and any tips for when I start Carnivore again. Many thanks.
Well, I really think the skin has an awful lot to do with the liver. It could, if it's still persisting on Carnivore, although psoriasis, it's a funny one, it can be really tricky and really slow to heal. And I remember a particular client I had who had a daughter who was covered in psoriasis, and she was really embarrassed, and she had to go off to new town for a new job and whatever, and it felt awful because she had all this psoriasis, and then it wasn't working, and then it's a little bit better. Oh, but it's come back again. It kept going in waves for a long time, and then suddenly she sent me this video, and she'd always been very shy, and then suddenly she was in her car and filming herself eating meat and driving along and going, it's gone. The whole lot's gone. Never did I think I'd be just eating meat and driving along. And she was just totally different person. It was beautiful to see. But it does somehow tend to sort of go in waves. And I think with psoriasis, although it's the blame for everything, but I think there's an oxalate component there for psoriasis. I really think that it can be an oxalate dump, because skin issues definitely come up at the same time as sort of kidney issues and, you know, stones, cloudy wee, that sort of thing. So it can be particularly an oxalate thing, which you just have to kind of ride out. Or if you want to go to Sally Norton's complicated protocol in her Toxic Superfoods book, in the last chapter, it's worth a try. But with something that kind of stays around, I think there's also a liver component. And I know that people think it's tremendous woo-woo, but I would really recommend trying some liver flushes once a month on the new moon. And in the Big Fat Challenge Facebook group, I believe we've got the liver flush protocol. It's in the Big Fat Challenge as well itself. It is the Andreas Moritz one, but adapted for carnivores, because we don't want anyone drinking gallons of apple juice and having, you know, plant-based diets and all that. But I think I've seen skin issues really clear up after the liver flushing. Now, you know, call me mad, call me woo-woo merchant and whatever, but we've just seen so many results. And I've done 60 of them now. Hardly do them anymore. I might do one. I'm not sure what I'm doing in 12 days or whatever when the new moon is. I don't know if I've got a gig or something. I don't want to do it with a gig, because, you know, sitting on a drum stool with Armageddon going on really is not very pleasing, probably, for the audience. But I think, you know, definitely try the liver flushing. It just works. I don't know. Does it do exactly what it's supposed to do? Are there really these stones that come out the liver? Are there? Maybe. I don't know. Having done 60, I'm still not sure. But I have seen that, you know, it really does shift the bile. It really does give a good flush out. Definitely. It just has to, because of the process that is quite severe. You know, it's not mucking about and taking a little bit of milk thistle for your liver. This is proper, you know, surgery without a scalpel. And it's, you know, brilliant results for the skin. So I would say look into oxalates and look into, you know, liver flushing, because if the liver's clogged up, then the second organ of detox, well, is the lungs. But after that, then the skin. So, you know, liver issues can show up on the skin, definitely. Yes, that's what I'd say. And of course, a whole load of sun, please. Yes, if you've got psoriasis, get a load of sun. If you can't get sun, get some red light therapy maybe. If you can't get that, maybe find a full spectrum sunbed, something like that. And get, you know, get the areas exposed particularly.
And Nigel says he's regretfully on immunosuppressants. Do you have thoughts on those, Phil? Any opinion one way or the other?
I think, you know, I can't, obviously this is a disclaimer. We don't give medical advice on here, except for to throw the damn things in the bin. No, of course not. I would never suggest that, because, you know,
he says it all the time. He's always,
yeah, absolutely. No, I would have nothing to do with them, but it is your personal choice, and I can't say whether you should or not. I mean, if it's a steroid that you're on, then you really need to wean off it. But anything else can be thrown in the bin, and you might get a bit of a flare afterwards, or they might not have been helping at all. The way I look at it is all these things mess about with another pathway in the body. You're trying to cure some pathway in the body, and that messes about another pathway. So it's like the people with arthritis who take these immunosuppressants, and sometimes they get some relief. A lot of times they don't. And then they probably think, their rheumatologist is saying, well, think how much worse it would be if you weren't taking this. And it probably wouldn't be anyway. So they're still posting pictures of swollen fingers and whatever on Facebook groups. So these things don't work, but they're also very, very damaging to the liver. And even the eyes, you know, seeing people get you know, retinal detachment, stuff like that. I'm just really not I'm honestly not a fan of any of that sort of thing. You know, Western medicine has some tremendous things that can save your life in the short term. You know, if you've got anaphylactic shock, definitely go to them. You know, steroids will be great then. If you've got bone sticking through your leg, you know, don't have a cup of herbal tea. Go down to the hospital. But if you've got something chronic, I don't see them having any success. And I just see them, you know, compounding the problem. And you know, if it's an oral DMARD, or whatever it's called, it's going to be messing about the gut biome, which is going to be messing about the any form of autoimmunity as well. If it's an injectable one, up to you. I wouldn't have anything to do with it. You know, wouldn't have anything to do with it. Nethi says, you know, that eating high fat or fat fasting can also clear the liver, Kathy. And absolutely right. She is totally right there. You know, this business of backing it up and then, you know, opening up the bile ducts with the Epsom salts and then putting in the loads of olive oil just to make the liver flush through is probably a severe form of it. And I think in time, these things would resolve anyway. And I can hear a little Sophia on my shoulder saying that's absolutely mad and all of that will make the gut leaky and it's totally unnecessary. And she may well be right. But, you know, if nothing else has worked, it is worth thinking about. But I would say it's unnecessary. I would say it's more likely to be some kind of oxalate dumping and the liver just cleaning itself out. But it will do it in time, as Nethi says anyway, on a carnivore diet.
That's because Kathy put in the chat, I read the liver detox. I read about the liver flush this morning. I'm not sure it's something I can do.
Yes, no, fair enough.
We had to dare each other, didn't we, on the 90-day challenge? People going, oh, if you do it, I'll do it, and whatever. Well, I've done 4 or 5. I just think it's fascinating. The hardest bit for me is not eating before the thing, but even that's not difficult. I mean, Epsom salts solution tastes like hell.
It is horrible.
It's vile, bitter. It's the bitterest thing in the world. But there's only 4 glasses of it, two in the night, and then 2 the following morning. And the salad dressing is actually delicious, especially if you haven't eaten for 3 days and it's the first thing that you get down. You know. Yeah,
it's all right, isn't it? Yeah, olive oil and grapefruit.
It's fine. It's fine. You'll survive it. No worries. And seeing the variety of interesting shapes and colours and things that fall out of the other end is well worth the price of entry.
It's a treat, isn't it? Yeah, it is weird. It is weird. But again, I would say, a disclaimer, it's probably unnecessary if you stay on a carnivore diet for a long time. I had a hell of a lot of benefits from it when I was doing it every single month. Back when I was really sick in 2010, 2011, maybe beginning of 2012, around that time. And it was very helpful, and it reduced inflammation for about 3 or 4 days to almost nothing. And then I'd get back, you know, on the plants and all the crap I was eating, and of course the inflammation came back again. So it was like just a merry-go-round the whole time, every month, and that's not the way to do it. But you know, I think I might sometimes do it at change of seasons, autumn and spring equinox. Do I need it? Probably not. But again, it's quite fascinating if you've got nothing else to do. If you're really bored and want to make your arse explode because you're that bored, then liver flush is your treat. Yeah, it's funny.
The bottom has fallen out of your world, then do a liver flush and have the world fall out of your bottom.
Yes. Nisa said the liver flush I did years ago wasn't great for me. 36 hours fasting or fat fasting is far more palatable, and I had greater results. Yeah, definitely. Some people do have bad results on bad experiences on the liver flush, lots of nausea, that sort of thing. I've had it a couple of times, had nasty results, but yeah, not necessary, but fun for the biohackers among you if you fancy it. Nigel says, thanks, Phil and everyone. I've tried almost everything. Scared to stop immune injections until I have a good enough safety net. Look at liver flush. Many thanks. Worth a try, Nigel, but again, it's what we remove that's most important than what we add, whether it's a liver flash, whether it's whatever. And I think a big thing to remove, and I know it's difficult. You think of that safety net there. I just don't think of it as a safety net anymore. I see it as a sort of spikes on the ground that you're going to fall on if you fall off the tightrope. I don't see them as a safety net. Again, as I said, in the short term, things can, like steroids, can save your life, but honestly, not. Watch out for them, Nigel. Watch out for them. Maybe book a consult. Seriously, I don't say that very often on calls, but really to have a talk through this and to give you some confidence, maybe have a consult, or maybe join our big fat tribe. Then you can ask. So we get these Q&As, and we can follow you along and get this keep tabs on your progress and give you some encouragement. So there's a weekly Q&A like this on our Big Fat Challenge. There's another 4 calls in a week for the Big Fat Tribe that we have. There's some very experienced people on there, and loads of people who can help as well. So please, if you fancy joining us for that while you're going through this process to get some confidence and see other people who've come off these things, please feel free to do that, or hit me up for a consult or whatever, or just email or whatever. Can't turn anyone away. I hate seeing anyone suffering. So whatever you fancy, but please keep us posted. Okay, now Cena's friend says, my mum was greatly relieved with her psoriasis applying castor oil packs on the skin over the liver area. This can help for people. That didn't work for me. It didn't do anything except completely grease up the sofa and me, and to get everybody fed up with me because I'd stained the sofa and everything. But some people report great benefits with it, so it is definitely worth a try. Anything that does clear the liver will help the skin. Niti says, the greater question is, what are the immune injections prescribed for? Violating the sacred bloodstream is not actually a solution. It is true, I've got to say. Here I'm typing in bold statements, but the truth is plain. Yeah, you come and have a chat, Nigel. Just email me, and we'll have a proper chat. We'll go through loads of stuff that I can't talk about on here if it's going to go on my YouTube channel and get it pulled down. And I'm shadow bound enough as it is, and I'm already hovering around the, advising you to maybe not take that, or no, I'm advising you that I wouldn't. But I'm a lunatic tinfoil hatter, so don't take any notice of me. But yes, I can give you a lot of stories about people's different journeys with psoriasis and what they experienced. Cool.
Okay, question from Kathy. I've been carnivore about 3 weeks, and my arthritis has been acting up a little the last 2 days. Could that be caused by oxalates? Definitely could.
Yes, it could.
I mean, I never had gout attack, which is obviously acute form of arthritis, before I went carnivore. I remember going up to Ethical Farming Conference up in Scotland. I was crippled with gout, had one giant foot and one normal one. And yeah, I was definitely carnivore at that time, but I was going on and off dirty carnivore. But I do believe that is oxalates, a big part of it. I don't know exactly how it all works. But Phil, yeah, you mentioned that to Sally Norton on your interview as well, and she said absolutely. So yeah, just like turning up the dial on your arthritis. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, but also I think there's a load of things as toxin. And I was just about to say that, and Niti's put it in the chat. Going carnivore, as poison leaves the body rapidly, that rapid healing pushes a lot of problems to the forefront all at once and then washes it out. Exactly right. And this is basically what a Herxheimer reaction is. It's called, quite often things get worse before they get better. And so you can find that you have flares, and then it dies down. You think, yay, I'm cured. And then suddenly, 2 weeks later, you have another little flare. You think, I haven't changed my diet. But 3 weeks in, it's very, very, very early days, really early days. Most of the main issues come up in the first sort of 30 to 60 days. you know, and that's with people who don't particularly have anything. It's just to do with adaptation. So the body's adapting, as Neethi says. There's a load of toxins coming out here. It could be oxalates, could be anything else. It depends what you've got stored up. You know, a load of things attack the joints. Who knows what's happening? You know, nobody knows. And anybody who puts their foot down and says, yes, it's definitely this. No. But, you know, I love something that Ken Berry once did, and he put up this meme of, you know, instead of saying, is the carnivore diet good for thyroid, or insert your issue here, put, is the proper human diet good for insert your issue here? And then it sounds a bit silly, doesn't it? So, you know, if you're on a good carnivore diet, don't have any fears that, oh my God, this is making it worse. It's not. It's just allowing the body to do what it needs to do. And inflammation is a very important thing. You know, when it is chronic, it will damage you and it goes on for too long, but it's a very important thing for clearing up toxins. And whatever's going on in those joints, the body's trying to get rid of whatever's stored up there. And, you know, the joints is one of the areas where things, you know, store up and where they get released from. So, yeah. There, I would say that. I mean, having, you know, not knowing too much about other things, your history and whatever, but yeah, it could definitely you could have a little ups and downs over the next little while. So what's this Neethi said? Do you want to actually pop up and say hello for the last little bit of this, Neethi? Come on and say hello. It's about time. We're putting some great stuff up here. So, is your recurrence a side effect of, I don't know, Neethi, you can talk about that.
Hi.
Yay, there you are.
Hi.
Hey, Neethi, how you doing? Lovely to see you.
You guys too. Hold on. I don't have anything set up. I didn't set anything up. I'm sorry. We're in a rental, so I don't have my normal setup over here.
No, it's cool. No, you said this thing about the recurrence of side effect of falling in the plant ditch. What was that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I just mean that, you know, I mean, we've all been doing this for a long time. I know that I think I've most confidently been doing it more since 2016 or something like that. But before that, we were always very meat heavy, regeneratively meat heavy, as you guys know. But what I found in, you know, I'm always coaching families, for those of you who don't know who I am. I have people here in my food church, like face to face. I don't do a lot of consulting online. So most of the people that I talk to are in my space, and it's families. So I have had the pleasure of really helping to coach thousands of families over the past 15 years. And what happens is that you have an acute reaction at the very beginning of cleaning things up. And in some situations, you really flood the body with a lot of toxins and have a negative side effect. A lot of people alternately also just have a very incredibly easy time, and it just washes out and it's like real clean and simple. But everybody's body is going to react in a different way, and we can't possibly know what that's going to be. You know, in a situation where you have someone who has been really tied up in the medical mafia and they've had a lot of injections and, you know, parts and pieces cut out or inserted into the body, then all of that interference is going to create a different kind of reaction versus someone who hasn't really had that much interference.
Exactly. And Claudia has put up, you know, also for psoriasis, if you have silver mercury dental fillings, get them safely removed by a trained dentist. And
Right.
this is very important for everything. And of course, avoid shots with thimerosal mercury in them. You know, you're right, Neethi. Yeah, it could be anything. So many things come out. We just don't know what we've been poisoned with. But that link, if anybody wants it, click on it, because it's a good link that Claudia's got. I lost all my links to sort of Hal Huggins trained dentists, but Claudia's put this one up before, so it's a good one.
think too that we should stop pinpointing the doorknobs and bathroom tiles, because you know the house is made up of a lot more things than just these doorknobs and bathroom tiles. And you hear, you know, people start doing this, and then all of a sudden they become aware of, you know, oxalates or 3 words, you know, and they just keep just digging in on those 3 things, and it's really detrimental. Like, please stop it. Like, we don't know. We're not, you know, we're not infinitely intelligent to know all the things that, I mean, think about this, guys. Like, in the 80s, they just discovered vitamins. They just identified vitamins in the 80s. And then they just identified, you know, antioxidants and whatever else that they've been talking about in the past 5-10 years. Oxalates, I mean, we never heard about that before the past 5 years, I don't think, you know. So
well, we did. They've discovered them a long time ago, the oxalates, because people were getting actual poisoned on the way in, weren't they? You know, people were sort of dying from eating too many pots of sorrel soup and whatever. So
I should retract that statement. Listen,
they knew the dumping.
They knew the plant poisons when they centralized the system back in the day. So let me just start all over again. If we really want to do this, then we should say they knew that plants were poisonous for us over 100 years ago, when they decided to rewrite religions and make everybody believe that they were supposed to be eating plants. Because, I mean, speaking as an Indian person, you know, I am specifically very personally offended by this, because, you know, they made us believe that Krishna was a vegetarian, which is nonsense, because he was a buffalo herder. And all religious prophets and saints, and even Jesus, they were not gardeners. None of them. They were all shepherds, and they all, you know, were shepherding lamb and, you know, goats and buffalo Indians. Can you believe that? Indian people? Yep.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, absolutely. And in the old texts of Ayurveda, they often mention, you know, the Charak Samhita, Bhava.
The Bhagavad Gita has nothing but
They say
all the stories of the shepherds, but people aren't really. I don't know why they're not talking about that. But, you know, then the British India Company, you know, when they, you know, enslaved India, then at that moment they rewrote all of history, and, you know, there are no people alive left to tell us the truth. But the pictures are there, and all of the depictions and all of the religious, you know, like they lost language because they didn't want people to be able to communicate from history. They didn't want anyone to be able to understand the historical data. But, you know, we're not stupid. The cave paintings and there's no evidence of humans ever eating plants. So, you know, what is poisoning us? Everything, all the freaking plant. Like, what are all the poisons in the plants? I don't know. All of them. Find a botanist. Like, I'm sure they know. But we know that someone did it, and they did it on purpose, because now I'm changing the subject of the conversation. I'm sorry. But that, you know, humanity has been attacked, and, you know, has been being sold off, and, you know, for forever, since the beginning of time. And as the dark ages are leaving and the golden age is coming in, the reason that we are having an awakening, not only, and I'm sorry, but I presume that we can talk about this, because the invitation for this conversation was that it's not just about the food, it's about
yeah, go for it.
So to me, I was excited about jumping on with you guys to talk about that, because I want people to know that we've identified who Mr. Global is, and there is a solution to be able to remediate that, should anyone be interested. And that is my new thing that I'm talking about. If anybody wants to jump on my YouTube, that's my new series. So I did actually do it in order. I started with the war against meat, where these 2 fine gentlemen joined me, and we had conversations about the war against meat. And then after that, I did the series on the law of nature, because natural law is something that people need to understand. And then, why is it that our Bill of Rights here in America and our Constitution has empowered nations around the world and helped humanity around the world? I'll tell you why. Because our entire global system only has 3 jurisdictions, and it is something that is global. The 3 jurisdictions are the land and soil, the air, and the water, which is actually the seas, but water for the acronym LAW, law. And so the lawful jurisdictions are different from legal jurisdictions, because legal jurisdictions are based on corporations, corporate language, which is legalese, which is convoluted and manipulative. And then there's the law, which is simple, and it is for the living men and women. And that simple law, the common law, God's law, is in English, like plain language for everyone to know. And there's only 2 laws that everyone has to follow. 2. And the one is do no harm. And the second one is do unto others as you want others to do unto you. And so that means that you also have to allow grace, meaning if someone harms you, you must allow them to make it right. So if you don't allow them to make it right, then you have not done to others as you want others to do unto you, right? You have to allow them to make it right. So there should always be able to be remedy. And so you can seek remedy, and you must allow the remedy. And that pretty much sums it up, friends. Like, that finishes all the things. But what everybody doesn't really know, which we're revealing in the series, is that we still are operating in this feudal system, and that there is someone who, the people, which includes everybody, humanity around the world. This is not just about Americans. Our Constitution wasn't just for Americans. This is something you might not know. Our forefathers who came here to seek religious freedom, if you understand British English, which you gentlemen should, but most Americans don't, is that religion is just means free thought, free thinking. If they came here for religious freedom, they came here for free thought. So, and what does that mean? Like, religion is just your beliefs, right? And beliefs are just the thoughts you keep thinking. And so they weren't allowed to do that. They were coming to this new land to find freedom from human enslavement that was happening around the globe. And so they were doing this for everyone. It wasn't just for themselves. And our forefathers were Hermetic practitioners. What does that mean? Well, they were followers of natural law. Some of them were considered atheists, some of them were Catholic, some of them had different religions. What we're talking about today about those religions, wasn't the way that they operated. They operated based on Hermetic law, which is universal law, which is common law, which is natural law, which includes, mentalism and, polarity and all of the 7 principles, the ones that people know. But then there's an 8th principle that has been occulted or hidden from all of humanity, just like they occulted and hid language, right? They didn't want anyone to learn how to speak Latin. And they didn't, like, most people weren't allowed to read. They only taught the monks how to read, not even just regular men, definitely not women, but just the monks. Like, it was just, you were chosen to learn how to read. This is what they tried to control for a long time. But here we are in the golden age, in this age of information. And so if you choose now to ignore knowledge, then you're ignorant. Because what is ignorance? Ignorance is choosing to ignore knowledge. And that is not nescience, which means that you just don't know and no one expects you to know. Don't be confused. They're 2 different words, but language matters. And it matters for legalese. It matters for the law. It matters for all the things that are happening. You must be able to communicate. Because if you can't understand each other, then that causes division. And this is how we have been enslaved. by misunderstandings.
And,
If you
our education
understand-
about food, of course, has been completely taken out of the hands of the people. You used to learn from your parents, your grandparents, what to eat and how to medicate yourself. And within the space of a few generations, they've completely torn that out. So that now we listen to My Plate, we listen to experts. You know, Phil can't talk about it because he's got some idiot coming up and saying, "Are you a doctor? Are you a registered dietitian?" So how can you possibly know what to put in your mouth?
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, I
got a
mean,
doctorate degree.
we were saying earlier just a little bit before we wrap, because try and keep it under an hour and a half so that it filters out from my YouTube channel to like other things that it goes to, and they'd limit that to, if it goes over an hour and a half, they don't fiddle it out to like library and things like that. But anyway, yeah, the Ayurvedic thing, you know, I mean, in the early days of that, it in those old texts, it says the most nourishing food for the body is meat. It's like amrit, like nectar. And this said it in the old texts. And
it's what Ayurveda was based on.
Well, even
Ayurveda
Ayurveda has been perverted, because now I remember I wrote a book. My first book I wrote was on Ayurveda in mid-90s, and I was fooled into thinking it was a vegetarian science, listing all the foods, and this is Vata, this is Pitta, this is Kapha, this is Sattvic, this is Rajasic, this is Tamasic, all that bollocks, you know. But it's all been perverted. But anyway, Neethi, we'll have to get you to come back on and expand on some of this, because we've got.
I'd like to have a whole conversation on this. I think we should have a whole thing on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're up for that, Neethi. So you guys traveling at the moment? Are you going to be home soon?
Well,
a rental.
We're shopping for land, and what happened is that we put in a few offers, and they kept getting declined because we had a contingent home to sell. And the homes here sell really fast because there's no inventory right now. And I didn't want to put the house on the market until we, bought the land. And since that wasn't possible now, they weren't accepting those offers. We moved into a rental. All this is just happening. So it's pretty crazy. But we're in the pool, friends. So we jumped in the pool and we are making the move. And now things should just happen more cleanly and easily, because we just have to sell the house, and once it's sold, then we can keep moving. And I'm excited because then I can finally build our healing faith. So
that'd be lovely. Looking forward to that story completely.
I'm going to put a link to the tribe as well in the chat for anyone who's still on, who isn't in.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want several, like 4 meetings per week, in addition to the Q&A where you can go over this stuff and bring any questions and everything else. But I just want to say thank you to everybody, and Jonathan and Stephen and Neethi. Thank you so much, guys, for jumping on and sharing all your wisdom. Thank you, everybody who's brought your questions along. That's what makes the Q&A. It would be very hard to do it without them, I think. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you so much. And if anybody's watching the replay on my YouTube channel, the links will be below to the challenge and the tribe and whatever. So lovely. See you next time.
Let's wrap, and this conversation will continue. All right.
Yes.
yeah.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Bye.